puts glove on knee, has a new sign from Blanco. He's ready and delivers. Morgan, a smash up the middle, base hit to center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win. The Brewers are moving on a base hit by Nyjer Morgan. He's being mobbed. Wow, what a scene. Nyjer Morgan, who has delivered so many times this year, delivers a base hit to center field to score. Carlos Gomez and the Brewers have beaten Arizona. What a scene out here.
You're listening to Darnell the Chumps, Darnell's Chumpy Wisconsin Sports Show. All right. Well, we will get to what we just witnessed a little bit later. That was Tony Plush or Nyjer Morgan, depending on how you knew him. That was him walking off the Arizona Diamondbacks, who's probably going to be the Brewers' first opponent here in the playoffs in the Wild Card Series back in 2011. I was 16, and I thought that was the coolest thing that has ever happened in the history of sports. It was right after the Packers won the Super Bowl, so we were kind of on a little bit of a high in Wisconsin sports at that moment. So maybe manifesting a little bit of Diamondbacks playoff magic coming up here for the Brewers, because it looks like they're not gonna end up with a top 2 seed, which kind of stinks. But what are you gonna do? You're listening to Darnell's Chumpy Wisconsin Sports Show. I'm your host, Darnell the Chump. As always, I just got off of work here, so I didn't feel like changing into the skivvies or anything like that. So we're just gonna go ahead just get started right away. This is episode number 29. Next week's going to be the 30th episode of DCWS here. Pretty crazy. And I know we had a little bit of a lull there in the middle of the summer. I didn't do any shows in July, and then actually none in July or August. So we are back, but we are back with a vengeance. September, October, November, December. That is Wisconsin sports. Beautiful time. You got Packers, you got the Badger football team, you got the Bucks starting up, you'll have the Badger basketball team. Just what more could you ask for? Besides a Brewers pennant and maybe a World Series championship. How cool would that be? Do it for you, baby. But again, I digress. Darnell's Chumpy Wisconsin Sports Show. I'm Darnell the Chump, and I'm going to start actually off with the Packers. Even though I played a Brewers clip from like 15 years ago. The Packers are 2-1, folks. They're 2-1. They haven't had Jordan Love for 2 weeks, and they're 2-1. That goes to what they're able to do from a roster standpoint. The fact that they can win games without their top quarterback, like this is impressive stuff. And from the team building exercises, right? Like you're looking at Goody, right? Brian Gutekunst, the Packers general manager, is doing a fantastic job at just putting a roster together. And then you have the job that Matt LaFleur has done with game planning, playing to Malik Willis's strengths, like all of this stuff. All right, well, I'm gonna hop right into all that. It is the Packers are 2-1. Okay, they won 30-14 against Tennessee at Tennessee. Malik Willis, I've got his stats right here. He was 13 of 19 for 202 yards with a touchdown pass, his second of his career. He also rushed 6 times for 73 yards, which is well over a 10 yards per carry average with a touchdown on a read option. Well, I mean, what more can you say about a guy that just got completely disregarded and discarded by the Tennessee Titans less than a month ago? I mean, the Packers picked him up, right? Late August, and they were like, all right, well, we think he's better than Sean Clifford. He is obviously better than Sean Clifford. And, if Jordan Love were to go down for a stretch, we feel like maybe we'd be able to salvage a couple of games. Well, unfortunately, that ended up happening first week. And Packers Nation, myself included, kind of held their breath. We're sitting there like, what are we supposed to do now? Right? We had this hyped up season in our brains where we're going to be, an 11, 12, 13 win team. We're going to be a top 2 seed, top 3 seed in the NFC. And it's going to be kind of like NFC championship game or bust type thing with this season. And that all just went to crap in 15 seconds of one play at the end of the game, right? Jordan Love goes down. It looks very serious. And Malik Willis comes into the game and can't even get a Hail Mary attempt off. I didn't even, yeah, I was so frustrated with the Packers at that moment. I was like, I cannot believe that they backed up Jordan Love, who is the anointed one for the Brewers, for the Packers, with Malik Willis, some castaway from Tennessee who has only started 3 games in his NFL career. And boy, have the Packers front office and coaches and just general organization, have they just proved everybody wrong. All the pundits were saying Malik Willis has no shot. The pundits were saying Malik Willis hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in his career. He's been in the NFL for 3 years. He hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. He's now got 2. He's got 2 of them in 2 games, and he's got a rushing touchdown as well. And he's led the Packers to 2 pretty impressive wins. Now, one was on the back of the offensive line in the running. I mean, they ran for 260 something yards, right, against Indianapolis. And then this one, I think Matt LaFleur was like, all right, well, Tennessee's going to try and stop the run because no team just wants to run down their throat the entire game. He's like, all right, well, if you guys want to stop the run, then we're going to do a lot of play action and, a little dink and dunk, and then we're going to take some shots. And they took some shots. And man, if that wasn't just so fun to watch. So fun to watch Malik Willis prove the doubters wrong and go back into Tennessee and get that revenge. He was a pro's pro, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not mad at Tennessee," but he played with just an edge that maybe you didn't see 100% in the Indianapolis game the week before. But impressive stuff, really really impressive stuff from the Packers. Jacobs, Josh Jacobs, right, and Wilson, they rushed a total of 26 times for 93 yards. Add that to the 73 rush yards, and then a couple of end arounds from Jaden Reed, and they rushed for 188 yards. They're the best through 3 weeks. They are the best rushing offense in the NFL. That's a testament to Matt LaFleur and play calling. I'll get to him in a little bit, but if the Badgers could figure out some play calling things, looking at you, Luke, looking at you, Phil Longo, maybe we figure something out here. But the Packers are playing to their strengths. They're not relying on Malik Willis to win them games. They're relying on the strengths of this offense, the strengths of this team to get them over the edge. And then Malik Willis is just cherry on the top, right? So offense, impressive. Against Tennessee this week, even though the offense was impressive, the defense even more so impressive, like even more dominant than the offense was. They had 7 sacks. They had 2 interceptions. One was a pick 6, and Jair Alexander baited the living crap out of Will Levis. He sat back in soft zone about 6 to 8 yards off the receiver, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just going to play a soft zone." Will Levis telegraphs the pass, and Jair breaks on it and then just takes it 40 yards for a touchdown. Beautiful, beautiful defense. Love it. Love it. Jeff Hafley, thumbs up. Thumbs up, my man. That was fantastic. They held Tennessee to 33 rushing yards in a game. Now, they got absolutely slashed in the rushing game against Indianapolis. They had Jonathan Taylor. I don't fault them for that. A lot of teams give up a lot of rushing yards to Jonathan Taylor. But then they came back this week. They said, we're not going to let them rush on us. And they held Tennessee to 33 rush yards. That's really, really good. They also had a strip sack turnover. They finished with a +3 in the turnover battle there. And I'm like, I believe in them again. You know, I didn't not believe in them after Jordan Love went down, but my expectations fell away. And it was a little bit freeing. I'm not going to lie. It was a little bit like, all right, well, I don't have to expect anything anymore. This is kind of nice. And now Malik Willis is making me expect things again. And it's frustrating because guess who is up on the Brewers schedule? On the Brewers schedule. I'm talking about the Brewers. I'm talking about the Packers. Oh my goodness. Guess who's next on the Packers schedule here? That is your Minnesota Vikings. And this is where push comes to shove. Now the Vikings are 3-0. They beat really good teams to get to 3-0 too. They beat the San Francisco 49ers. They beat the Houston Texans with CJ Stroud last week. They've been generally very, very impressive. And a lot of people I don't think expected them to be as impressive as they are, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But I did want to just preview a couple things. First off, number one question on every single Packers fan's brain: is Jordan Love going to play? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, he was supposedly really close to playing last week. I don't know. You know, that's kind of up for interpretation. Was he close last week? Was he not close last week? During his little warm-up stuff that they had TV cameras on him for, he didn't look like he was like hobbling around or hampered in any way, but who knows? Jordan Love plays, I give the edge to the Packers. Jordan Love doesn't play, who knows? But I think that he probably does. Just for, it's a home game against the Vikings. It's a bad look for the starting quarterback not to be in there if he's healthy. Can the Packers can their front generate pressure when they're on defense? Now, this past week with the Titans, they were living in the backfield the entire game. It was really no contest. They were beating the crap out of the offensive linemen, the tackles and guards. They had nothing. They had nothing that they could do against the Packers front. They were overloading one side. They rushed 6 people, like 60% of the game. Like it was just an all out backyard football blitz on Will Levis, and it resulted in 3 turnovers and 7 sacks. Can the Packers do it against the Vikings? No, probably not. Probably not. I mean, they have a much improved offensive line compared with Tennessee Titans. So here's my prediction, and Packer fans probably aren't going to like this. I'm going with Minnesota 31, Green Bay 27. 31-27. I think that this is going to be a really close one. I think that Jay Jettis, I think he's got a big game. Unless we have Jair Alexander following him around everywhere he goes, I think that Justin Jefferson's going to just go off and have a big game. So I think he has a big game for the Vikes. I also think that Jordan Love plays and throws a costly fourth quarter interception, and that leads to us losing. Now, going to 2-2, not the end of the world, especially considering the fact that we could absolutely be 0-4. We could. Now, thank you, Malik Willis, for making sure that's not the case, but we could be 0-4. Instead, if we end up 2-2, great. If we win the game and go 3-1, then you just absolutely pounded the expectations that I had for the month of September after Jordan Love went down. So, while we're talking about the Vikings and the Vikings game that's coming up here on Sunday, parallels are a big part of sports talk. People like to draw parallels between certain things. They like to say, oh, well, the Packers are just like the hockey San Jose Sharks, and then they provide their reasons why. Right? That's a big thing in sports talk, radio, sports talk, just in general sports media. Um, so I figured I'd try my hand at it. Uh, my parallel today would be that the Minnesota Vikings, at least the start to their season, are this year's 2024 Milwaukee Brewers. And I say that because nobody, nobody picked the Brewers to be where they are. Nobody picked them to win the NL Central, except for maybe yours truly, which I talked about a couple weeks ago. But nobody picked Milwaukee to be any good this year, and they were, and they are. Nobody picked Minnesota to be any good this year. In fact, in my research for this week, it looks like almost everybody has them finishing either third or fourth in the four-person NFC North. Oh my gosh, I cannot talk. But see, that's what I'm saying. Here they are sitting at 3-0, with a very good shot at going to 4-0, and no one picked them to win the Central. No one picked them to win the North, just like no one picked the Brewers to win the Central. I see some parallels there. People said Milwaukee can't be good without starting pitching, right? What is starting pitching in the NFL in football? That's having a quarterback. And what was the entire offseason? They didn't have a quarterback, right? The Brewers didn't have starting pitching. The Vikings don't have a quarterback. Neither of those will work out. And guess what? The Brewers figured out their starting pitching, and they on their way to winning 90 games this year, right? The Vikings figured out their quarterback situation. Sam Darnold is an MVP candidate a quarter of the way through the year here. Like that's insane. That is completely insane. But it parallels. It does, and it's weird when you start like really looking into these things. Like, for instance, um, off a rival, maybe not a rival so much, but the Phillies, right? They had Rhys Hoskins, and guess who has Rhys Hoskins this year? The Brewers, and Rhys Hoskins has provided a spark. Guess let's look at the Vikings. They acquired an established veteran off of a contender, right? In Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones has provided a spark for a beleaguered Minnesota backfield. So it's just you can always make these parallels, and I thought that was kind of a fun one, especially in Vikings week here. But that's pretty much my that's my NFL takes for the week. It is funny to watch Caleb Williams continue to struggle. He threw for 360 yards, and Bears fans are like, "Oh my gosh, he threw for 360 yards." And it was on 52 attempts in a loss. He threw 52 times in a loss, including 3 times on 1st and 10, 1st and goal, 2nd and goal, 3rd and goal from the 3. Smart. That's really smart, guys. Keep doing that. Just the little brother syndrome with the Bears is hilarious. It really is, and I love it, because I heard all year, all off season, ever since you guys drafted Caleb Williams, it was like, oh, how do Packers feel not having the best quarterback in the division anymore? It's like our backup that we got from Tennessee for a box of scraps is doing better than your savior. Like, okay, all right, Chicago, we hear you. I get it. You just lost out on the MLB playoffs again. I get it. It's tough being in Chicago, but like the little brother syndrome is really it's funny. It's funny. And speaking of little brothers, um, Badger football is my next topic of conversation here. And they are the little brothers of the Big Ten right now. I don't even, if the Packers have figured it out, right? It seems like they figured out their problem. They figured out what they need to do to be successful, even without their quarterback, their cornerstone, right? If the Packers have figured out what to do, the Badgers have fallen into the abyss and have no idea what to do without their anointed quarterback, right? They had a bye week this week. Thank goodness. Couldn't have come at a better time for them. They just got spanked, absolutely pounded by Alabama last week. Hence the name on the episode, Bama Slamma Jamma. And they got to figure out what the heck they're doing, man. They just do. Like, move, not even just against USC this week, which is who they're playing. They're playing USC in LA. That could be yet another massacre. Vegas has them as 14.5-point underdogs already. The Badgers, that is. Not USC, but the Badgers are 14.5-point underdogs. I don't see them losing by less than 14. Like, I'd make that bet if I was a betting man. And that makes me sad. It does. Because I grew up in a time when the Badgers were the Badgers, and they gritted things out. They were that Midwest team that just, they wouldn't go away. They'd get out to a 7-0 lead on the back of a 17-play, 86-yard drive that took 8.5 minutes, and they ran it 14 out of the 17 times. Yeah, we're not that team anymore. That's not who they are. That's not their identity, which, let's be real, they don't really have much of an identity right now. But it's sad. It is sad that I have a platform here to talk about my Badgers, right? And I have nothing good to say about them right now. I really don't. Like, are we excited, Badgers, about anything really when it comes to this team? Like, is Braden Locke going to lead us to? I don't know. I just don't. It's more frustrating because it's starting to feel like they threw away something that was good for the empty promise of something that's great, right? They threw away Paul Chryst. Now, Paul Chryst, that was falling apart. I'm not trying to say they shouldn't have fired Paul Chryst, because the last 2 years of his tenure were not good, but it's the identity portion, right? They tried to get too cute almost, where they're throwing the ball, they're doing these, these fun read options, and they don't have the personnel for some of this stuff, and it's maddening to watch, because all three of these games were impossible to watch as a Badger fan. And they're 2-1, right? And they have the potential to go to 3-1 and put everyone's doubts to rest, but they have no shot at that. I'm sorry, they just don't. I believe that the X factor this week against the USC is going to be the D, right? Can the Badgers DBs hold up in coverage? They couldn't against Alabama. Can the front create any sort of pass rush? They could not generate anything against Alabama. Can somebody in the linebacker room, somebody in that linebacking core, can they show that they can be a playmaker? They can emerge as a playmaker. They can emerge as a star of some kind. We've got great linebacking in at the UW. Like, it's showing up in the NFL. Like, five of the top 20 linebackers in the NFL are former Badgers. And you just don't see that from this group. I don't know if that's Jim Leonard not there anymore, or what exactly that is, but I got to see something from this defense. The offense is his own issue, but the defense, like, that was a Badger calling card for like a decade and a half here, going back to Dave Aranda before Jim Leonard. It's just, I need to see more. I need to see some kind of improvement. I need to see some kind of fight, some kind of fire from these guys, and I don't know. I just feel like I'm not seeing any of that, and that makes me sad. I have some other questions. Now, this team is a team full of questions right now. Who the heck is the QB? Braden Locke, the quarterback? We're going to go with this freshman, Matower. Nebraska's starting a freshman. Why can't we? Now, Raiola showed his freshmanness in a loss to Illinois last week, but who do the Packers, who do the Badgers want to be? Right? Do they want to be a team that tries to play close games and just tries to hang around? Yeah, okay, that's fine. But if you're going to change the whole identity of the Packers or of the Badgers program, right? They're changing the program's identity. Then at least go for it. At least like make something of it. Don't half-ass things. If you're gonna go for it, go for it. But I don't want to see half air raid, half power offense, because those personnel groups do not mesh. They just don't. You're not going to be able to run power out of the freaking shotgun. Okay? If I see one more 4th and 1 where they line up in the shotgun and try and run it, I am going to put a spike through my brain. Like, what is there's just that defies logic, and I'm a logical dude. So, what's the play calling going to look like? Is that going to be better? We need it to be better. We need something creative that uses our personnel correctly. Like, I don't know, the read option, the RPO stuff that they did against in the first half against South Dakota. That was cool. They looked like they were going to run, and then they did a little pass, and then they did a big pass, a 55-yard pass. Where was that? Let's see some of that. Is this a 6-win team? Is this a 5-win team? It's a 4-win team. I don't know. I said last week I like to think that they're a 5-win team, but oh man, this week is gonna go a long way in telling me. First off, do we have some resilience? Secondly, what is the offense going to look like without TVD? And thirdly, is the defense going to be able to handle Big Ten offenses? We'll just have to see, because I don't have any answers to those questions yet. I don't. Let's go around college football just quickly here. Michigan just actually beat USC last week. They ran the ball a lot of times out of the eye, right? And they beat up on USC, and they win. I don't really have anything else to say, because that seems to be the blueprint to beat USC, and we'll see if Luke Fickell and Phil Longo take that blueprint and try and use it for the good of the program. Illinois, as I mentioned, just beat Nebraska, and now they're ranked 19th in the country. So Illinois is good at football again, and that's Brett Bielema. And I said they needed 2 weeks ago. I said they need some big Brett energy, right? Some Brett Bielema energy against Alabama. They did not show that, but Brett Bielema's doing things in Illinois, and it's kind of funny. I think it's more funny than sad. Just because, I remember the days when he was shirtless at a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse in Middleton, and that was images were flying around social media back in social media's infancy. Good times. 5 out of the 6 top-ranked AP opponents or AP top 25 this week. 5 out of the 6 are Southeastern Conference SEC, right? You got Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas, since they're in the SEC now, if you want to count that, whatever. All sandwiching around Ohio State in the top 5. So, and for better or for worse, in my opinion, for worse, because college football will never be the same, but we're quickly moving to a place where there's going to be 2 mega conferences, and it's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC, and every other conference is just fighting for scraps. And whatever's left over, they're not going to be doing a whole lot from a national championship standpoint, or getting to the national championship games, if you're not one of those top conferences, I think. The ACC's fallen off. Big 12, they lost their 2 calling cards there. The Pac-12 is making a resurgence apparently with Boise State and like Colorado, Wyoming. I don't, okay. Yeah, just die already, Pac-12. Like, who are you kidding right now? You're not going anywhere with that. So, okay, that's it for college here. I don't want to say any more about the Badgers or anything because it's just gonna frustrate me because it's sad. It is sad. It's a sad state of affairs in Camp Randall and UW Madison here, but you know we'll see where things go. It's still early in the season. A lot can happen. A lot of good stuff can happen. A lot of bad stuff can happen. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be good. It's going to be great. We're going to do great things. That was my Donald Trump impression there. Milwaukee Brewers. That was super random. Oh my gosh. That was insanely random. I felt it come over me and I just had to go for the old D Trump there. All right. Well, the Brewers still have not lost 4 games. That streak remains intact. They clinched the NL Central last week against the Phillies by walking them off. Just insane. Like the euphoria and the vibes in that game, second to none. All right. Jackson Chourio triple to get into scoring position, and then a Jake Bowers freaking single. Wow. Just yeah, that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool thing to watch and witness in real time. So, what do the Brewers do after that euphoric night? Well, they proceed to lose their next 3 games against the D-backs. They got themselves into position to make a run at a 1 or a 2 seed, and then they lose 3 straight games and basically put themselves all but out of it. And then on Sunday, in the 4th game of that series against the Diamondbacks, they went down 8-0 to start the game. And I was watching football, so I didn't really care all that much. But I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, they're kind of falling apart a little bit here. And they went down 8-0. I think they heard some boo birds at Miller Park, and the Brewers haven't heard a whole lot of boos this year. They've been a really good team. They've had a really great season. So they heard some boo birds, and I think starting with Pat Murphy, who's, the heart and soul of that locker room, he was like, all right, hey, we gotta figure this out. We gotta figure this crap out. And they proceeded to tie the game at 9 in the 8th inning. And then another Jake Bowers go-ahead single, right, to get them to 10-9, and they won it. So they came back down 8-0 in the final 5 innings and proceeded to have the biggest comeback in, I think, since 2004 in the MLB. 8-0 to win a game. So I really just think that kind of encapsulates what this season is for these Brewers, right? They get knocked down, right? They don't score a lot of runs over the course of 2 or 3 games, and everyone freaks out. Everyone says, this is the Brewers that we were expecting. This is the Brewers that are, this is the team that we know and love. And then somehow the Brewers go on a 5-6 game bender and just beat the living dingus out of people, right? They had 12-1, 12-4, 14-6, and you're just like, okay, I shouldn't have doubted the Brewers. My bad. And in this case, it was to not lose 4 games, which has been their calling card all year. And I've mentioned that going back to June, back to May, and I was like, hey, they still haven't. Every time they lose that 3rd game, they go on a run. Right after they lose the 3rd game, they win a couple in a row, and the vibes get back. right? And that's the same thing that they have to kind of keep that idea, that vibe going over the next couple of weeks as we head into October and playoffs and postseason and all of that. I wanted to touch quick on the current race that they're in, which is the race for a first round bye, so that they don't have to play in the wild card round. They are down 4 games to the Phillies and the Dodgers. So at 89 and 67, the Phillies are 93 and 64, Dodgers 93 and 63. They're not coming back from that. They'd have to win out their final 6 games here starting tonight. I think they're currently playing right now. I'm just not watching. But they'd have to start tonight, win their final 6, and I think the Phillies would have to lose 5 of their final 6. So, yeah, that's not happening. It's just not. So, they haven't been eliminated from the 1 or 2 seed here, but super unlikely at this point. And what are you gonna do? It's just it is what it is, and we're able to just be happy with an NL Central division crown here and a shot at the postseason. That's what everybody wants, is a shot, right? You got to get there in order to have a shot to win it all, and they have that. And speaking of shots and having shots, the Cubs don't have a shot. They found out over the weekend that they were eliminated from postseason, right? They not only were they not going to win the NL Central, we knew that last week, but they got eliminated from the postseason altogether. They got kicked out of the wild cards. Wah 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 wah. Craig Counsell, go cry. You left the Brewers for greener pastures, and the pastures were not greener. And now you get to hang out in Whitefish Bay at your park that someone keeps spray painting the word ass over, which is hilarious. Craig Counsell's such a Judas, man. He's like, oh, what do you have to do to catch up to the Brewers? We're way behind the Brewers. It's like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. You're way behind the Brewers, man. So far back. And Cubs are like, oh, well, you just caught us in a bad year. Has it been a bad year for 6 years? Yeah, it's 6 bad years in a row. I don't know, man. Oh. This is the first time, I think, in some time, probably 20 something years, that no team in the MLB is going to reach 100 wins. No, none. Neither of the leagues can any team reach 100 wins, which means we're all going to be the 90s. It really, really feels like it's anybody's year. Like, similar to last year, obviously, the Rangers were pretty good, but the Diamondbacks came out of nowhere to win the pennant. Anybody can go get it. Do it. So just do it. Nike that stuff, guys. Like, let's go. Let's do it for Uke. Do it for Bob Uecker. I watched the post-game stuff when they clinched last week, and I was basically on the verge of tears just watching, like, Bob Uecker be out there and at 90 years old and just, like, loving life and just doing his thing. He's just out there. He's like, I used to come out here and I used to play and I used to do batting practice with the old guys and it was really fun. I love that guy. Go win a championship for him. He's been here for like 700 years. Go win a dang championship for him already. My goodness. A swing and a drive. Yep, just do it. Let him do that in the World Series. Let him call a World Series at the age of 90. That's insane. Like, go do this, Brewers. Let's do it. I'm going to do a full breakdown of the MLB. I will. I'm going to do a whole breakdown. We're going to talk about the MLB and all the playoff teams. We have it pretty much. I think there's only like one more in the NL that can kind of go both ways, but we're going to figure that out. On to October. It's insane. I'm really excited for it. More excited this year than I think I have been for any year except maybe 2018. And that was obviously a pretty crazy year with an MVP candidate and all that. So go Packers this week against Minnesota. The Vikings, right? Go Badgers against USC. The Trojans. The Brewers, just win 4 of your last 6. That's all I ask. Be above 500 in the final 6 games here, and go into your wild card series against probably the Diamondbacks with a little edge. You just got your butts handed to them, or your butts handed to you by them last week. They took 3 of 4 at your home. Go return the favor if that's who you face. And yeah, the next time we talk, it's going to be postseason for the Brewers. Wow. All right. Well, that's pretty much all I've got here for today. Obviously, as always, if you have a take or you have anything to tell me, at Scary Russian Spy on Twitter, on X, right? Darnell's Chumpy at gmail.com. If you have questions or pose some kind of question, whatever, I'll talk about anything sports related, man. I really will. But that's all I've got for today. So peace.